If I didn't have diaspora, I wouldn't have gone to bury my daughter because I couldn't afford it.
When my father passed away, without them, I don't know where I could have started with all the things I covered for the funeral.
Financially, they were ready to give me the money for the funeral here in the UK, or even in Zimbabwe. They were ready to give me US dollars.
Now we looked at other costs, but we knew that at least she was going to be repatriated.
Yes.
There was enough money to repatriate her.
We wouldn't have made it without diaspora funeral cash plan.
Hello viewers, my name is Leo Munende. Welcome to the agenda. This week's the agenda is brought to you by Diaspora Insurance Company. Now, today is promising to be very explosive. I have the former finance minister of Zimbabwe. He was finance minister during the Government of National Unity. He's also the vice president of the Citizens Coalition for Change. Honorable Tendai Biti. Honorable, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon.
Honorable, straight into it. We are discussing the monetary policy statement by Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe Governor John Mangudya, and I know you have a lot of points, considering that you also administered those kind of policies during your tenure as finance minister. Mangudya's theme this year was stay the course. The assumption is that Zimbabwe is on the right course. He cited inflation, which he said had gone down from 800% to 60%. And he also cited export receipts, which he said were now up 66%. You don't maybe you can give us some of your points, some of your reasons.
Well, there's an elephant in the living room. And the elephant in the living room is the dual economy that Zimbabwe is. So he is pretending to administer a certain economy. He is prescribing solutions to a certain economy. But the rest of us are in another economy, another reality. The real reality. His is a reality distorted field. It's an artificial field. It's a false field. There is a dual economy in Zimbabwe. There is a US dollar cash economy where most of us live in, where shops will not accept anything other than the US dollar, where school fees is paid in US dollars, where fuel is paid for in US dollars, where rentals are paid for in US dollars, where houses and buildings and cars are sold in US dollars. And that is the bulk of the economy. It's dollarized and it operates below the surface. It operates subliminally. It's the US dollar economy. John and Mthuli are in this artificial world of the Zimbabwean dollar economy. When he prescribes his monetary policy, he is pronouncing monetary policy for this small, non-existent economy, which is controlled by cartels, which is there to benefit by cartels, because the Zimbabwean dollar is just an instrument of arbitrage. It's like a worm on a fishing rod. It's there to attract a bigger fish. So the Zimbabwean dollar is there just to attract a bigger fish. I want to give an example of the auction rate. The auction rate has been averaging 1:83 in the last 2 years. 2020, since it was introduced to 2020, 2021, and only recently is it appreciated to around 107, 108. So what ZANU-PF cartels are doing, they are using the worm the fishing worm or the kapenda of the Zimbabwean dollar to go and fish US dollars at the auction rate at a subprime price. The difference between the official auction rate and the parallel exchange rate is a premium of anything between 100% to 200%. As I'm talking to you right now, the rate is around 250. The false rate is around 100. So that's a premium already of 100. So the RTGS dollars are being used to go and fish the US dollars at the auction market, which US dollars are then sold and pumped back to the parallel market at 1:250, 1:228. So unless now you decimate this dual economy, and you can only decimate it by re-dollarization, then you've got a problem. Anything you are doing is a pretense. Now, those that are saying inflation is gone down, the first question you need to ask them is, which economy are you measuring? Are you measuring the US dollar economy, the cash US dollar economy, or you are measuring the artificial, the false, the distorted, non-existent Zimbabwean dollar economy? To compound matters worse, we have got a multiple exchange policy in Zimbabwe. So there's a price for the US dollar, or for the same commodity. There's a price for the RTGS dollar for the same commodity. There's a price for EcoCash mobile transfer for the same commodity. There's a price in something they called Zipit for the same commodity. There's a price for bonds, the physical cash Zimbabwean dollar for the same commodity. So it's a totally discredited economy. It's a totally devalidated economy. To put it very simply, it's a cantankerous economy. Someone once called it a casino economy. There are rules in a casino. If you play Russian roulette, there are rules in a casino. This is a sewer. In a sewer, you can't measure the extent of the stench. You can't measure the extent of the floor. It's a dog's breakfast, but one which many dogs would not touch anyway, not by a long man.
And then speaking of all these points you're raising, dollarization, I will jump on to you have been very categorical in your stance. You are very clear. Zimbabwe needs to dollarize as soon as possible.
Yeah, but I want to qualify.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I want to qualify now. In 2018, when we wrote our blueprint, when we were still the red part, our solution was just that we dollarize completely. And there was no room for the operation of the Zimbabwean dollar. Now we have moved. Dollarize, but retain the Zimbabwean dollar.
Okay.
Retain the Zimbabwean dollar, but abolish the auction flow. So float the Zimbabwean dollar. So the Zimbabwean dollar will find its natural mark in the market, in the open market. My suspicion is that it will find its mark at around 1:400. But that's not a problem. Kenya has got a stable currency. Uganda has got a stable currency. But the Kenyan shilling is 1:6,000 to the US dollar.
Is our economy strong enough to stop at 400? Our fundamentals correct to stop at 400 at the present moment, as you're saying?
As 400, when you were coming from Geje, it's a lot of depreciation. So don't consider it a point of strength. It's a point of weakness. And when you consider now that someone who is earning, let's say 20,000, if you divide by 4, is earning less than $10. So it's a massive, devaluation. I wouldn't consider that strong, which is one of the problems really that they faced, is that they de-dollarized when fundamentals were not there, and fundamentals did not exist. Hence, the parallel market is shooting, and the fundamentals are 3 or 4. Number one, you must have reserves. They didn't have foreign currency reserves. They 300 million US dollars, which I left when I was in government, which were carried over from the US 510 million SDR we obtained in 2020. So I kept 300 million US dollars which Namasa then converted in paying back the IMF, so they have no reserves. So as long as you don't have reserves, you've got a problem. Secondly, and I keep on telling them this, that your currency is a relationship between your exports and your imports. Your currency is a relationship, a hukama, between your it's basically your current account. It's your relationship between your exports and your imports. Now, despite the figures that Governor Mangundla, gave 3 days ago when he presented his monetary policy statement, the fact of the matter is that we are a large supermarket economy with permanent, inelastic import demands. We don't produce our fuel, so we need about US $2 billion on fuel alone. We need about US $1 billion on electricity alone. We need close to $1 billion US on fertilizers. It's an agricultural economy. We import ammonium nitrate. The factory, the little factory we had in Kwekwe, called Stable Chemical, which used to manufacture ammonium nitrate, closed down. And without ammonium nitrate, you don't have agriculture. We also need to import drugs. Also, our citizens, the transport system is broken down. We spend another $1 billion US importing vehicles. These are permanent, inelastic, imports, which put a permanent pressure on our US dollar, because we have to source the money to get that. Then, of course, you know that Zimbabweans love trinkets. The likes of Chinimbi love their moye. Slay queens, slay guys, whatever you call them. Trinkets, soft life. That also costs a lot of money. So you are talking of imports of around $7 billion a year. That's money that is to go out. Our exports are not more than 3 billion, 4 billion. So when you have a ratio now, when you have a ratio of imports to exports, which is 4:1 or 3:1, that is to say, for every dollar that comes in the form of export earnings, $4 are going out in the form of imports, then you never have a strong currency. You will never have a strong currency. It will be attacked. And that is why constantly, there are pressures for the dollar to shoot up. I didn't add another thing which is creating a pressure on our currency, which is corruption. Billions and billions of dollars are being shipped up every year. There is illicit financial flows. Transnational corporations like Zimplats are responsible for that. Like BAT, they are responsible for that. But there's crude corruption. We lose about $1 billion US a year on cigarettes alone. We are losing about $1 billion a year on gold, illegal gold, exports alone. That's all foreign currency that is going out, which could otherwise be imported. Thirdly, a currency is also, based on confidence. Your currency is the perfect embodiment of the social contract. How healthy a country is. That's why we always say you can't rig a currency. You can't rig the exchange rate. You can't put mascara on it. If you look at me, I'm a very ugly black man. So it doesn't matter what mascara you put, I'll remain this hardcore Bantu man. So the same applies to an exchange rate. You can't put mascara on it. So people lost confidence in the Zimbabwean currency. People have no confidence in Mthuli Simube. People have no confidence in Emerson Mnangagwa. As I always say, time and time again, if you are in a marriage and one partner is caught in flagranto, red-handed with a paramour, it doesn't matter what happens in that relationship. That relationship is gone. The Zimbabwean dollar was caught in flagranto with his pants down by the people of Zimbabwe in 2006. It will never come back. In the history, in the monetary history, and I'm a historian, there is no country which has involuntary dollarized like we did in 2009, which has been able to de-dollarize, because it's a confidence thing. Maybe some point in Panama in 1904. Now 1904 is a long way. What you can do is you dollarize, but you bring your currency, but pegged and floated so that there are no distortion, so that at the end of the day, your currency just serves as change, as a transactional instrument, and not as a store of value. Value continues being kept by the hard currency. So it's a confidence. We don't have confidence in Mr. Mnangagwa. We don't have confidence in that man with a high marginal propensity to lie, Mthuli Ngube, and it's a problem. So you need to solve politics. You need to solve legitimacy. This government and ZANU can't ever introduce a Zimbabwean currency. A future government under Nelson Chamisa can do that because money is trust. That's why the US dollar floats everywhere. In Lotito, in Chendambuya, in Mexico, it floats everywhere. But the US economy can't support the US dollar in world circulation. But there's trust in that currency, which is not shared in the Chinese renminbi, the Indian rupee, and other currencies which I don't want to provoke.
Honorable, you have partly answered my third question now on inflation. You have talked of confidence. Now, this is the situation we are in. The Zimbabwean dollar, 1,000 Zimbabwean dollars are failing to buy even, like you're quick to say, carpenter.
Yeah, that is now the problem.
Now, what is behind this resurgence in inflation, despite the fact that Mama Ngujga is saying it has gone down from 800 to 60%?
Yeah, so the problem now, when we say re-dollarize, it is not the panacea to this economy. There has to be other microeconomic measures that one has to do. In 2009, when we introduced it carried us 50%. In other words, it had a major, immediate impact in creating stability. But that won't happen in 2022 or 23. It won't happen. It won't happen. Part of the problem now is that the US dollar itself has been commodified. The US dollar itself is now a commodity with use value and exchange value. Currency is just an exchange value. It's an instrument of exchange. In the olden days, they used to trade with goats. So goats were money. They used to trade in cattle. If you had many cattle, you had many wives, you had many husbands. If you lived in a matrilineal society like Malawi. So currency is an instrument of exchange. But the problem with Zimbabwe, the dollar itself has been commodified. So it now has certain characteristics that are now imported into the economy. And with speculation and shortages, you now see, and this is the problem, you now see inflation in US dollar terms. Do you understand what I mean? You now see inflation in US dollar terms. I bought a shirt, as you know, we now have a new color. So I went to a shop to buy a yellow shirt. I bought that shirt at $50 US. A few years ago, I was buying the same shirt at $20 US. Now, every housewife in Zimbabwe will tell you that even in US dollars, the cost of things have gone up, which is why even in 2014, Chinamasa had the US dollar, but the economy didn't improve. Mthuli still has the US dollar, but the economy is not improving because you now need to deal with other essential tools of management the economy, particularly on the fiscal side. The first one is that you have to eliminate deficit economics. You have to go back to what I used to call we eat what we kill, strict cash budgeting. Eliminate a deficit financing. Well, the problem in Africa is not the problem of deficits. Government will overspend. It is how you finance that deficit. It is how you monetize that deficit. Now, if you're going to monetize that deficit by printing money, by printing treasury bills, all you are doing is, number one, you are creating and destroying confidence in the economy. You are creating inflation pressures. And they've been creating pressures. They print money to support command agriculture. They print money to finance a road, construction. They print money to give various incentives in the economy. Gold incentive, tobacco incentive. All that is money that is being printed. They are running deficit economics. Mthuli will boast of zero deficits or surpluses, but we know he's not running surpluses. Only recently, Parliament assumed $3.4 billion debt from the central bank. So he has been hiding the deficit at the central bank. They're printing money. And you know what happens when you print money? If you're a Zimbabwean, it's deja vu once more. We're back to 2008. And one of the things that I don't forgive ZANU-PF is that you must learn from your past. Once between twice shy, they don't learn at all. They don't learn at all.
If some of the policies you are talking about, some of the points you are raising are not listened to, where do you expect the exchange rate to be by end of year?
What they are doing now. I
mean the parallel one.
Yes.
Interbank.
The parallel one. I think very soon it should be around 500, but they are afraid of that now, particularly in a year before the elections. So what they are doing, if you read John Mangunja's statement, he says we are running a tight monetary framework. So what they are doing now is they are squeezing the supply of RTGS dollars. So if you go to 4th Street now, a money changer will tell you, I'm having a problem. RTGS, but in the US dollar. So you now have the distorted situation, Mr. Kanambula, that US dollars are no more plentiful than the RTGS because they're squeezing the tape. How are they squeezing the tape? With withdrawal limits. You and I are not allowed to take our money from the bank, but how is that possible? What kind of country is that I can't get my money of this useless money? 2, they know the major players. There are not more than 10 companies that can generate millions of local currency. One of them is Delta, the other one is Econet, the other one is the Mikus family because of Pick and Pay, the other one is the OK family. These huge players, they are closely monitoring their current accounts to ensure that there is no movement that can be used to fuel 4th Street. But as I always argue, Guineanomics doesn't work. You understand? Economics is an invisible hand. Adam Smith used to call it the invisible hand. You understand? So you can't play with that because it will implode. The tapes, there will be catharsis, there will be an implosion, there will be a safety net somewhere. That's why 4th Street is alive and kicking. They find ways of beating the system. So to be very crude and very simple, the rate will hit 500 before August, and by the end of the year will be very close to 1,000. So it's back to 2008. What did we have in 2008? We had what is called a crisis of overaccumulation. What is the crisis of overaccumulation? Is too much money chasing too few goods. So in 2008, we were all billionaires. We were all trillionaires, but poor trillionaires. $100,000 trillion note, which was the last note that the Reserve Bank printed, could not buy you 2 bottles of soda. Valentine's Day is coming. So you go to a restaurant with 100,000 in your swipe card, it won't buy you a meal for your girlfriend. What guys? You understand? So you are rich, but you're extremely poor. It's called a crisis of overaccumulation. When too much money chases too few goods, and that money becomes useless. It's essential political economy, which my friend Mthuli will never and can never understand.
I will not ask why. Now,
it's just a fool.
going back to dollarization, Manguja says the local currency spared a 7.8% growth of the economy, and I know you are totally against this kind of view.
It's a balkanized economy. You understand? So all data that comes from it is unsafe because it's a parallel economy. If you go to any business, they are counting in local RTGs, but they are trading in US dollars. They're trading in US dollars. Offline. Accounting is supposed to be a true reflection of how a business is being run, how a nation is being run. But you can never look, and some companies, Delta speaks out. Look at the financials of Delta. I love them. Because they speak out and say, look, this is fiction. This is fiction. This is fiction. So don't give me their statistics, because it's not credible statistics. It's measuring a small, tiny economy. The Zimbabwean dollar economy is small and tiny. The bulk of the economy is US dollar economy, which they refuse to acknowledge. Only for the purposes of accounting, but for the purpose of extracting money, they acknowledge. Every tax is now in US dollars. Even a number plate is US dollars. A passport is US dollars. So they are completely dishonest people. They are completely mendacious people. They are necrophilia. It's a disaster.
ZANU-PF says during the GNU, when Zimbabwe was still under dollarization, if I may put it that way, Zimbabwe turned into what they say was a supermarket country, where products from South Africa would be sold here. That is their defense for not dollarizing.
But that's not true. When I became finance minister, capacity utilization was 4%. By the time I left, it was 80%. So that means industries booted up and started production. And how do we know this? We know this by the growth rate. The average growth rate of the GNU was double figures. In 2011, we're the highest growth rate in the world, all the countries in the world, of 12%. And they gave me an award, for something. So the economy doesn't need a spokesperson. The economy speaks for itself. The economy grew. Talk to ordinary citizens. They will tell you that our lives changed because the economy grew in the real terms. So it's a fiction. It is an absolute fiction by people who are ignorant of the fine tunings of economics, and by people who are constantly playing politics, by people who are desperately clinging onto a desperate past, people who are still fighting a war that ended 43 years ago in 1979. And that is the problem in this country. We've got a mindset that is 44 years behind. It's like a remote control, and we're frozen. And somebody forget that we're frozen. So others are now watching 21st Jack Reacher. You are still watching Jackie Chan and Charlie Chaplin. And that is the problem of Zimbabwe.
And then, now there's some, as journalists, we wouldn't know everything. That's why sometimes we put
read
to explain.
You young people don't read.
There's an inconsistency which I would like you to explain. Vamangujga announced that the $50 facility was now limited to vulnerable groups only, is it? He gave a number of reasons, but those reasons didn't make sense.
Yeah, we know the reason. They don't have foreign currency. They're busy stealing foreign currency. Foreign currency is being made for the boys. The auction system is an allocation system for the boys. If you were to carry out an audit of the share structure of the big players that are being allocated foreign currencies, the who is who of ZANU-PF, it's cartels, like Billy Rottenberg, like Udata Birey, like Kenneth Reagan Sharp, like Nick van Woesterstrand. They're cartels.
But they seem to have the US dollars because they increased the amount of US dollars teachers should be getting, if teachers accept that kind of that offer.
My friend, they didn't. Effectively, it's $20. They didn't. This is smokescreen. This is smokescreen economics, and they're hoping that we have a good agricultural season where they can monetize this, and they're hoping that they can pull through because they need a year to the next election. So this is fecha, kukia. That's what they're trying to do, but they can't fool anyone. Every civil servant knows that it's not a salary increase. The effective increase is 5,000 a bond, and 5,000 bond at 250 is $20. So they're not fooling anyone. Not even their own wives, not even their own children, not even their own husbands. They're the most dishonest people. They lie naturally. The only other person, I won't mention his name, but he leads that red party. He lies naturally.
And then as we draw closer, if I wouldn't know how after 2023, if things go your way, the party and
There's
government,
a yellow revolution, my friend.
the party and government will be
There's a
structured.
yellow revolution. This one is putting on a yellow.
If you become finance minister after 2023 or in 2023, what policy propositions are you going to implement immediately to turn around the fortunes of this country?
I don't know about being finance minister, but I can tell you what needs to be done. So we have to sort short-term distortions, transitional distortions. So the first transitional distortion is, of course, the currency. So we need to dollarize but float the exchange rate. We need to kill export surrender requirements. We need to abolish the auction system. Number two, we need to change the way that government is managed. So the issue, as I said, of eliminating deficit financing. I think the Public Finance Management Act must be aligned with the Constitution, because the Constitution actually says what happens on the left must be balanced on the right. That means implicitly the Constitution in Section 302 and Section 303 actually is not for deficit financing. So we need to implement a serious system of cash budgeting. We eat what we eat what we kill. Number three, the elephant in the living room, corruption. We have to destroy the 7 or so commanding heights of corruption, which include number one, the US dollar and the Reserve Bank. Number two, command agriculture. Number three, fuel. And I'm saying this not necessarily in order of importance. Number three, fuel and the cartels that control fuel. The cartels that own the pipeline or release the pipeline. The cartels that are running the wholesale bulk fuels in Zimbabwe, including Billy Rottenberg, Tabgirei, Secunda. The retail mafia of fuels, in particular Zuva, Secunda, and Trek. And number four is, of course, commodities. The cartels in the mining sector. The concessions that have been given, particularly to the Chinese. Now they're going to our graves. Now they're going to our ancestral land. $15 billion was stolen in diamonds alone. Now they're stealing billions, in platinum. Great Dyke investment is a terrible, investment. The other day, the country's sole lithium mine was sold for a mere 400 million. But lithium is the future because everyone is moving away from hydrocarbons to clean energy. So the commodity sector needs to be cleaned, minerals. Next is, of course, procurement. Procurement. Look at what they're doing with the roads. Bedbridge was given to, Mr. Scuffman's friend. You put up a little shack at Bedbridge. Truckers are paying $200, $300 as a toll fee when there's nothing there. That thing is going to cost more than Kazungula. Almost 300 million. Kazungula was under 200 million. Kubakwe Mashar. This road, Bedbridge to Harare, 67% of it has been done by fossil construction. If you look at all these little roads, it's fossil construction. But I saw this morning today, the road near my house, they've removed the sign, fossil construction. There's now some cultist name kata construction, whatever that is. They're trying to hide what they're doing. So that is another commanding height of corruption. Another commanding height of corruption are the subsidies. The subsidies that are being given, gold, etc. Then lastly, the seventh is privatization. They've privatized First Mutual Life. They've privatized the ZP Bank. They've privatized Fidelity Printers and Gold. They've privatized BNC Corporation, Bindura Nickel Corporation, Zim Alloys, 11 gold mines owned by ZMDC. It's crazy. There's a creature called Kuvimba. They are putting everything. If you look at the 22 budget, 75 million of pension funds is going to be channeled through Kuvimba. So privatization has become a toxic portal of looting. So that's number 3. You need to deal with corruption. Number 4, you need to modernize this country, adopt 4G. And so that speaks for itself. Number 5, you need to put money into the social services. Money into the social service in the health, where the people are, people's livelihoods, and so forth. Number 6 is the jobs agenda, employment creation. I can write an entire book about that. Number 7, you need to deal with the country's infrastructure, gross capital formation. If you wake up someone who died in 1968, you won't get lost in Harare. There's been no development. You can't see a crane, anyway. So you need gross capital formation. Our roads, they don't have potholes. They've got oceans. They've got craters. Our roads. With great respect to the Democratic Republic of Congo, we've become the pothole capital of sub-Saharan Africa. Electricity, it's a blackout, total blackout. We need to install 4,000 megawatts of new capacity. Then, of course, lastly, you need to increase the country's competitiveness, because foreign direct investment is going to direct this thing. Next is agriculture. Agriculture can spare the revolution. We are working on something, and we are studying the Asian experience. And in the Asian experience, they had nothing but land, whether it's Singapore, whether it's Taiwan, whether it's China itself, whether it's Malaysia, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's Laos, whether it's Cambodia, whether it's the Philippines, whether it's Vietnam. They had land, but they strategically used that land to spare development. So one of the things you can't do is to allow land to continue being dead capital. So 19 million hectares of land is land in the rural areas. It's dead capital. It has no use value. It has no exchange value. You need to give it value. So someone must own that land, whether you call it a certificate of ownership and whatever. Someone must own that land so that it becomes valuable. It becomes tradable. So land will be the anchor of a future industrial revolution that will make Zimbabwe great again. We need to go back to the Mutapa Empire, when this was the biggest empire in sub-Saharan Africa.
Although we're not talking about the Chinese, when you're talking of electricity, I remember that the Chinese ambassador said if were it not for them, we would probably be in darkness.
But that's not true.
Now, lastly,
But that is not true.
Lastly,
we are still using Wange 1 and 6. It was not built by the Chinese. We are using Kariba South. It was not built by the Chinese.
Lastly, I'm sure those in the civil service will definitely punish me or send comments on our live stream there.
Is this live stream?
Yes, it's live.
I should have told.
If I don't ask,
yeah.
What do you think should be done in their case? It's now almost, it's a crisis.
It has to be given. We have to go back to 2014 salaries. They need to be given a minimum of US $500 per month. It's that simple. It's that simple. It's that simple.
They are on
Don't promise them houses. Don't promise them cars. Give them a basic wage. Give them a strong functional economy. Give them tools to work with. If they are teachers, give them textbooks. Give them modern classrooms. Give them chalk and proper, blackboards. If they are doctors and nurses, give them their frontline workers. Give them a decent salary. Give them tools to work work with. It's a crime that you go to a hospital like Parenyatwa, and patients have to be. The government is now delegating to patients and their relatives to look after people that are inside. I've got my Sekuru, he had prostate cancer, and he has been ill. We pay for every test. We pay for gloves. We pay for syringes. We pay for Panadols. It's crazy and it's ridiculous. So doctors get frustrated. They get used to dying. You become fatalistic. You become cynical, and it's bad. So the simple word is pay civil servants their due. Get back their salaries as a starting point to 2013. Give them US $500, not US $100. It's nothing.
I'm sure civil servants will be happy to hear that.
And we will do it, by the way. We will do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the former finance minister, Tendai Biti. He says he will do it in 2023. We should not know. He was reviewing the RBZ governor, John Mangujga's monetary policy statement released 2 days ago, and this is the end of our program. This is the end of the agenda. It's always interesting speaking to the former finance minister. Honorable, thank you so much for being on the agenda. I don't know how to respond to that. How do I respond to that? Zikomo. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
If I didn't have diaspora, I wouldn't have gone to bury my daughter because I couldn't afford it.
When my father passed away, without them, I don't know where I could have started with all the things I covered for the funeral.
Financially, they were ready to give me the money for the funeral here in the UK, or even in Zimbabwe. They were ready to give me US dollars.
Now we looked at other costs, but we knew that at least she was going to be repatriated.
Yes.
There was enough money to repatriate her.
We wouldn't have made it without diaspora funeral cash plan.